But yeah, that's what I did. So, now that we got through what you're doing, let's talk about Star Wars, the original trilogy.
OT.
Now, here's what's interesting before we move on. Some people get upset when you call it the original trilogy because the idea is that it's a six episode saga and trying to cut them. I'll get into this later on.
Who gets upset?
It was cut by like 25 years. It wasn't like we did it.
Like they came out. Who would get upset with that? It
just
easily distinguishes the two between each other.
No, I know, but some people, what it's saying is that Lucas talked about this, that George Lucas,
I thought you were talking about Skywalker. I was like, oh, he addresses this. That's nice.
Lucas, he talks about how he looked at it as an approach of each is a chapter, but it's a chapter of a larger book. So you can read a chapter of a book, but you need context and things. So they all fit together. And I'll go over, I did a lot of homework this week on Star Wars. I got real, as you would say, sweaty. I got sweaty into the nerd culture of Star Wars. You know, a lot of interesting. I love the passion that people have for obviously Star Wars. I have it myself, but reading a lot of the interpretations and the ideas behind the mysticism behind Star Wars and how it was created and what Lucas was trying to do with the prequels versus the original trilogy. I'll get into that in a little bit. But we'll start with, of course, A New Hope. The very first one. Now, you just recently watched...
Literally. Okay, that's why I didn't watch the Captain America trailer, and I didn't watch the new Defenders show. It was because I was watching in like 7 pieces A New Hope, because I wanted to freshen up. And I'd seen this before, but it was like 15 to 20 years ago.
How dare you?
I know, I don't keep up with the Star
Every
Wars
year,
stuff.
we watch it.
Yeah, on like a birthday or something. But yeah, no, I was really good. It made way more sense as like an adult.
Yeah.
Plus, actually having watched all the older or the newer movies, it gets confusing, but like he's talking about how he's a good pilot and his dad was a pilot.
Yeah.
Like the whole conversation at the beginning with Obi-Wan, he's like bringing up the Force and like why it doesn't exist anymore. None of that made any sense to me as a kid. Like it was the boring part before they got to lightsabers. And but as an adult, I was like, oh yeah, that's what they're talking about.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They do make a lot of references to the prequels. They say, oh, my dad fought in the Clone Wars. So like, yeah, that's cool. Like as a kid, you don't.
Right.
But
now the Clone Wars? I had no idea.
And
now you do.
Getting a little sweaty. What they were talking about, because I definitely check out this one other plug another podcast. It's called Story in Star Wars, and they basically take Star Wars and they look at it from kind of a story mechanics and things of that nature. But what's interesting is what Lucas does in a lot of his movies is give you enough information to know that the universe is bigger than what you think. Right? Because at that point, you don't know what the Clone Wars are. You don't know what, I think he also says he was a spice trader and so it gives you the world is much bigger than what you think. And that's something that's hard to do in literature or in storytelling. So I don't know. Watching New Hope, I watched it again too. And I'm traditionally my favorite was Empire Strikes Back. A New Hope is now A New Hope is my new favorite, and I'll tell you why in a little bit. But
it was really, really good. One thing I noticed that they did, and I'd actually the one I watched was the special edition one with all the added pieces. I kind of want to watch.
Which special? They've added pieces every time they've re-released the movie on different media.
It's hard to tell.
If it's a new one, if it's like the Blu-ray or digital release, they've added stuff.
He doesn't know.
I don't know. Yeah, so it had Jabba the Hutt part where he's like talking with Han outside the Millennium Falcon. Yeah. That part was not good. The graphics that they added, they look like they're newer, so I know those are the parts. Yeah. But they all look bad, and it doesn't make.
When they're driving through Mos Eisley and they just slam a bunch of crap on the screen in front of like people walking right in front of the frame. It's just like, oh, George,
a couple of the beasts. They don't look good. And it's like, then they go to the ones that are like clearly puppets and they look really good. And it's like, why did you change that? I don't know why they decided to add things in there. It didn't seem to bring anything to the movie. Plus, like, one of the things I noticed in these new ones versus the old ones is like, they didn't force aliens on you. Like, they showed them in the background and these things, but it wasn't like a main character. Chewie is the only main character alien in like the whole thing.
Yeah,
and
for the most
part. There's the 2 droids, and then everybody else is human. As far as you can tell, they're human, and I like that because it doesn't distract you. It's not like you're trying to get into this whole like story of other aliens and stuff. There's just this one standalone beast that just roars all the time, and I just thought it was a really cool way of doing it. They show some other aliens again. They're like this universe is vast,
Right.
but they're focused. It's very, very focused on these 5 characters and their adventure to save the princess, basically. I mean, it's like a Zelda.
Yeah, that's actually what this thing talks about. So a lot of people would say, well, what realm does Star Wars fit in? A lot of people would say science fiction, and the argument is actually it's more fantasy. It's more high fantasy because you have these secret wizards that have a magic wand or a magic sword,
Right.
to save the princess.
Exactly.
No, it has a lot of fantasy mechanics to it.
Oh yeah.
And I think Lucas even says one of his big inspirations was JRL, or is it JR? Tolkien, yeah. So it's interesting to kind of hear some of that. But one thing I did notice going back and watching A New Hope is you don't see this in movies a lot anymore, but the dialogue scenes between when Obi-Wan is talking to Luke, in between their dialogue, it's just quiet. Movies aren't quiet anymore. Older movies, like from the 70s, like I watched Lawrence of Arabia recently. I've watched older movies. There's quiet. There's not a lot of quiet. There's always background music or something is happening during dialogue. It's not literally just quiet. It's interesting to see that. And it actually, as you watch the movies, there's less and less of that. Maybe because of, the movie got bigger and bigger and you needed
probably
more. But it's interesting to note that the very first movie, it seems quiet. There's a lot of quietness in the movie. I don't know. Maybe I don't know if you guys noticed that.
I did notice like some of the music is very subtle. Like they use certain things and like you can kind of tell where, I'm sure they do this in movies all the time,
Yeah.
but you can tell like, oh, he's going to use the Force pretty soon because it's like that gets like
They
crescendo.
build up to it and they make it all dramatic. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
So do you like A New Hope or?
No.
Well, no. I mean, like generally, obviously.
I'm like, where's Star Wars?
Yeah, he's got the Star Wars shirt on.
No, I mean Empire is my favorite movie because it has all the twists and it sets everything up.
Right.
And so that's my favorite. But I mean, I love all of them. But I mean, New Hope would probably be my second, and then probably Jedi.
So what's interesting? So going over the kind of the sweaty stuff that I looked up, one thing that they talk about in A New Hope, and I think this is the reason why now it's my favorite of all of the original trilogy movies, is the mechanic between Luke and the Force, right? And the idea being the Force is kind of the antagonist of that particular film, meaning, and obviously Luke is the protagonist. Most people would, I'd say most people would agree. But the idea that Luke doesn't know what the Force is in the beginning, then is kind of shown it a little bit, right, when he's training with Obi-Wan, and then he wants it, right? He's like, oh, I want to be the most power. He doesn't say that, but you know what I mean? He wants to become stronger in the Force, and then he kind of sees the strength of the Force, like how scary it is, to be honest. And then
when does he see that?
Well, when he's seeing so like for instance, well,
because I mean he's not really familiar with Darth Vader, so he doesn't even know that
well, he
Force
sees,
is related with that guy. I mean, essentially, and he sees him battle Obi-Wan.
That's the point where he sees how scary it is because
he doesn't know that that's Force related. It's just
he just cut him with a saber. Yeah.
No, I know, but I'm saying he sees
maybe the power of the dark side.
Right.
Maybe.
That's what I'm saying. Right. And then and there's a part in the podcast that they talk about. He talks about how the line where they're briefing to blow up the Death Star, right? And they say, oh, it's this 2 meter wide,
no bigger than one prat.
Yeah, exhaust port, and everybody in the room is just like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like even is it Briggs? What's his name?
Biggs.
Yeah, he's like, there's no way, not even a computer could hit it. And then of course Luke comes in and he's like, oh, I used to shoot womp rats that size, and everyone in the room is just like, what are you talking? Like, so it's this idea of him still relying on his piloting skills and not letting himself go to the Force, right? And that's the whole point at the end, is that he essentially lets go of his
targeting computer.
Right, he doesn't have to. It's about letting go, right? Letting the Force be the medium.
If you
for
have
the
a
Force.
dead guy tell you, you're like, you watch this guy die, and then he's like, "Hey, Luke, by the by, you've got this secret power." I would be like, "All right, I'll let it go. Let's try it out."
I guess. Yeah.
Dead guy's good.
If a ghost ever talks to you, listen to him.
That's what I would do. And when they say "get out," you get out. If they tell you to shoot something, you shoot it.
So yeah, that's why I think honestly that's why I like it, having that appreciation for how the Force is kind of the point of that movie. I don't know. It was interesting.
I wouldn't call it an antagonist though, because that means he's
fighting against it because he's relying on his skill. It's like
I don't think it's fighting against as much as it is like not believing in it.
Right.
Yeah. Which is like, you know what I mean? I mean, it's a religion. They talk about it as a religion. You're the last of your religion. Like,
right.
This is a crazy religion. Or
crazy
whatever.
old Ben, yeah.
And I mean, and a lot of people would be like, oh, I don't believe in your religion. And so then someone's like, no, this religion's real. Like, no, like tomorrow, things are going down.
Right.
And then he's just like, And he's like, okay, I kind of felt it that one time. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't.
Right.
And he was able to stop the laser. But then when it came down to it, he like had to kind of have faith. Basically, he had to have faith in Obi-Wan Kenobi in this religion. But that doesn't make mean he's fighting against it.
No,
as much
I don't.
It is, he's just not
understanding.
He's not
coming
let
to
it
grips
in,
with it.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's necessarily fighting. Maybe it's just the acceptance of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Versus reliance on his own piloting skill and things that he talks about. And he even talks. I think he talks about he wants to go out for adventure and all this stuff like that.
And I think that too is like he's a bored kid. I mean, he's basically all of us in like middle school. We're sitting in class and we're just like,
yeah,
man,
but it's even worse.
I really wish that I could go do some adventure.
Just want to go to Tashi Station to get some power converters.
No, you don't. It's boring,
right,
man.
he was so bored. And then he had friends that were fighting in the
join the
Alliance.
rebellion.
And so he was just wanted that adventure so bad. So when he got this opportunity to leave with Ben, and it was just an exciting moment and turn in his life from just being a moisture farmer to actually getting to do something, and then finding out it's a much bigger, that he's been a child or whatever. Can we talk about the shooting first thing?
Yeah, Han shoots first, right? So
Not in his version.
Oh, okay. Well, that explains it. Because I'm like, it didn't seem like he shot first to me.
So in the original version, Han shot Greedo just like, boom, you're dead.
yeah.
Oh.
It was later edited to be like, we don't want Han to be that much of a dick because we want him to be a likable character. He's a good guy.
Right.
So we'll do Greedo shot first, and then Han, in self-defense, killed Greedo.
That is exactly what I saw. And I was just like, everybody's making Han to be a bad guy. And he's
in the
fine.
newest version, because they made it where like special edition where it was like Greedo shot,
It's at like the
frame,
same time.
frame, and then Han.
Right.
Where the new Blu-ray one, they made it where it's closer together, where they almost shoot at the same time.
It seemed like they
But
shot
the
at the same time, and it hits like right above his head. And
Yeah.
he hits him.
I see. I
But
don't.
the OG version, Han's just, he's a smuggler.
Right.
Like,
he
he's
steals
not this
stuff.
nice,
Well,
likable character. He's a smuggler. So
And he did have a gun in his face.
yeah, exactly.
Either way, it's not like he just walks in the room. I don't like your face, and shoots him. Like the guy's
Threatening him.
Yeah, he's basically like, "Where's my money?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I'll get your money." And then and then he shoots the guy. And, I mean,
and there's
can't
actually,
blame
and I'll talk about this later too. There's a lot of scenes that they filmed a couple different ways and times, and then they sent it to, what is that called when you send it to somebody and they like screen test? They did a screen test to see which version people found more receptive, and then they went with that. And there's some interesting when I looked up. Again, like I said, I did my homework this week. But okay, so New Hope. Anything else you guys want to add on New Hope? Did you guys? Okay, we'll break this up a little bit because I knew we were going to do this anyways. But did you play the New Hope version of the SNES game?
yes.
Super Star Wars.
Super Star Wars is what they called it, right?
Yes. How far did you get?
I didn't get very far because that game is way too hard.
Got to use the save state function.
Yeah,
It's like not possible. I don't know. I got into, what is the big sand cruiser thing that picks up the robots?
the Jawas. The Jawa sand cruiser.
Yeah,
The Sandcrawler.
Sandcrawler.
Yeah.
I got into the Sandcrawler.
That's not very far.
And like,
It's like the second part of the first level, right?
Yeah.
no.
It's a little bit further.
It's the third or fourth part. Because there's the first part, you're just walking through the desert and jumping over like sand pits.
Yeah.
Second part, you're on the cruiser and you're having to get to the Sandcrawler.
Oh, that's right.
Third part, you got to get on top of it. That part is ridiculously hard. The platforming to get on top of the Sandcrawler.
I'm already not good at platforming, so it's been a long time since I played that game.
Once you're inside, and then I just kind of lost interest more than anything else. I was just like, all right.
It's super hard. Yeah, and I think now just because of how games are not as hard, like I'm just like, why am I playing this? Like I could be playing Fallout. No, but it's just one of those things where it's just incredibly difficult. But when you were a kid, that's all you had, so you would spend 2-3 hours trying to just jump over. I just get, because of the save state thing, I get it like the continue thing where like if you lose, you literally have to go all the way back to the beginning of the level. I'm like, where's the checkpoint? There's no checkpoints on Super Nintendo, but
save state.
Yeah, I know.
Just make your own checkpoints every time you jump.
Every time you just save
like every
F7.
5 seconds.
F7.
Yeah. All right. So, anything else you guys want to add to New Hope?
The one thing I thought there was like some subtleties. I thought at the end when they're like celebrating their victory over them, or also one missile or two missiles blowing up that whole thing. Like I know they hit
the exhaust port, man. They hit the.
I know, but that was quite the explosion.
My thing was like, how does a torpedo go like this and then immediately get
the force
down? If anything, you would just shoot from up here.
Right.
Why do you have to go down a trench and make the missile?
Maybe there was
like
a
that?
covering and they had to go.
Maybe
I don't know.
Design flaw.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Millennium Falcon at the end. Like, as a kid, I remember that being a much bigger part. And it's just like, he flies in, kills one guy, and then leaves.
Yeah.
And then he's like, and now he's part of the rebellion. Like, he was leaving, he had nothing to do with it, and then now he's a big part. But at the end, when they're both kind of like jockeying for Leia, and Leia looks at Leia. They say Leia in the movie.
That's Leia.
It's Leia. Go ahead.
Your
special edition version.
I finished it today.
Anyways, go ahead.
But anyways, the way she looks at Han.
Yeah.
And then the way she looks at Luke, and then he's like looking at, like, gazing at her, and she kind of looks back at Han like, ooh.
Oh, yeah, that's funny.
And
like,
it's
Luke
like,
smiles at her, she smiles, and then Han gives her a cute little thing, and she's just like, here's your medal.
Yeah, it was kind of
funny.
It was some foreshadowing, some weird. Yeah, it was good though. But yeah, the ending, it does come out on that high note you were talking about.
Yeah,
with the medal up ceremony. And down. Yeah, no, like the whole movie. I don't know. The arc was really good.
Did you guys? How did you experience the very first movie? Did you see it? I saw the very first time I saw Star Wars. I watched it in a theater when they re-released it. I think sometime in the 90s. I think is when I watched it. That was the first time my dad brought me and was like, "Hey man, you're gonna love this," and I was like, "Oh, whatever." And then of course that very first scene, the giant Star Cruiser, and then the little, Star Destroyer. I was like, "Oh my gosh, so cool!"
I wish I remembered. I know we had the VHS set.
Yeah, buddy.
A New Hope I still have. I don't have the other two. I'm pretty sure we watched them all. I honestly don't remember.
No,
I'm pretty sure I watched it on like TNT or something. It was
oh, really?
Commercials.
So, yeah, definitely with commercials.
All right. Well, let's now move on to Gerald's favorite of the original trilogy, Empire Strikes Back.
It should be everyone's favorite, honestly.